My name is Daniel. I'm 17 years old. I live in a small town in Texas with my mom, dad, and my little sister Ava. Life was normal, I guess. I went to high school, played video games, hung out with my friends, and went to church every Sunday, mostly because my parents made me. I believed in God, but I never really thought about it much. It was just part of my routine, like brushing my teeth or doing my homework. I wasn't a bad kid, but I definitely didn't think about spiritual stuff. I was more focused on getting my driver's license, passing math class, and maybe talking to this girl I liked in science. Normal teen stuff. My parents were super involved in church. My dad helped with the youth group, and my mom sang in the choir. Every Sunday morning, we'd all pile into the car and go to this small white church at the edge of town. That Sunday started like any other. We had pancakes for breakfast. My sister spilled syrup on her dress, and my mom was fussing around trying to clean it before we left. I remember being annoyed because I wanted to be on time for once, but now I'd give anything to go back and live that moment again. We got to church around 9:45 a.m. The parking lot was already filling up. I remember walking into the building, the smell of old wood and coffee in the air. Everyone was smiling, shaking hands, greeting each other. It felt safe. It felt familiar. I sat in the third row right next to my dad. The worship team was already playing. I sang along half-heartedly, not really paying attention, just thinking about the day ahead, texting my friend under the pew. My sister was drawing on a church bulletin with a pink crayon. Then it happened. At first, I thought it was fireworks, like maybe someone outside was celebrating something, but then I saw the look on my mom's face, and the scream. The sound of gunfire echoed through the sanctuary. People started screaming, ducking, running. My dad shoved me to the floor. My ears were ringing. I couldn't move. I didn't understand what was happening. Then I felt it. A sharp, burning pain in my chest, and everything went black. For a moment, I thought I'd just passed out. But then, I realized something was very, very wrong. At first, I couldn't feel anything. It was like I was underwater. I heard screaming, crying, but distant, muffled. My body felt heavy, too heavy to move. I tried to call out for my dad, but no words came out. Then I saw my mom's face leaning over me, her eyes wide, full of terror, her mouth moving, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. And then, it was like someone flipped a switch. The pain, the noise, the fear, it all vanished in an instant. Suddenly I was no longer in my body. I was above it, floating, watching. I could see everything. I saw myself lying there on the church floor, my shirt soaked in blood. My mom was crying over me, clutching my hand. My dad was yelling for help. People were hiding behind pews. A woman was on the phone, probably calling 911. And the shooter, he was already gone. Just like that. In and out. 1 minute. It was so strange. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't in pain. I wasn't even sad. I felt peace. Like all the weight I didn't even know I was carrying had been lifted off me. But at the same time, I felt this pull, like something or someone was calling me. And then I noticed the light. At first, it was just a shimmer. Then it grew brighter, almost like a doorway opening in the middle of the air. It wasn't just white, it had colors I've never seen before. Not like anything on Earth. The kind of colors that feel alive, like they sing inside you. I was drawn to it. Not forced, just invited. I remember thinking, is this it? Am I dying? But it didn't feel like death. It felt like going home. As I moved toward the light, I felt this warmth wrap around me. Not physical warmth. It was something deeper. A knowing. A comfort. Like someone was saying, you're not alone. You're safe. I passed through the light, and then everything changed. The world I entered was indescribable. It was more real than anything I've ever felt before. More real than real life, if that makes sense. The colors were brighter, the air felt alive, and the love, I can't explain it. It surrounded me. It was me. I knew I wasn't dreaming. I knew I wasn't hallucinating. This was something else. This was the other side. And in that moment, I felt the presence of someone approaching me. I couldn't see a face at first, just light, but not the kind that blinds you. This light felt like truth. It felt like love, like justice, like everything good and pure that ever existed. And I knew. I don't know how, but I just knew. It was him, Jesus. At first, I was overwhelmed. I mean, how do you even begin to understand what's happening when you're standing outside of time, outside of your own body, in a place that feels like it was made out of pure love? But then, he stepped forward, not in some dramatic, glowing, arms outstretched way. No trumpets, no angels singing in the background. He just appeared, quiet, calm, but the moment he was there, I felt it in the deepest part of who I was. I didn't see the long robe or the flowing hair like in paintings. He didn't look like those images in stained glass windows or Sunday school books. He looked human, familiar, but not in a way that I can really describe with words. His face wasn't about features, it was about what I felt when I looked at him. And what I felt was everything. He radiated this deep, silent authority, like he knew everything about me and still loved me anyway. His eyes, oh God, his eyes, they weren't just looking at me, they were looking through me, into every corner of my soul. And yet I felt no shame, no fear, just acceptance, pure, complete acceptance. He didn't speak at first, he just stood with me in the light, and I knew he was giving me space to feel what I needed to feel. I started to cry, not from sadness, but from being known, from being seen. It was like every part of me that I'd hidden, every doubt I'd buried, every moment I felt invisible. He had seen it all, and still, he loved me. When he finally spoke, it wasn't with his mouth. It was like the words came into my mind, but I knew they were from him. The voice was strong, but gentle. Not loud, but it carried weight. Like thunder that doesn't scare you, but humbles you. He said my name, just that. Daniel, and I broke. I collapsed, not physically because I didn't really have a body anymore, but spiritually. I just felt myself fall into this overwhelming sense of home. I remember thinking, how could I have ever doubted that this was real, that he was real? I asked him, without even speaking, why me? Why am I here? I don't deserve this. I didn't even really believe. I was just a kid. I didn't even pray much. And he answered, still in that calm, powerful way, I know, and still I came for you. There was no judgment in his words, just truth. A truth that made me feel both incredibly small and infinitely loved at the same time. He reached out his hand, not like to take me somewhere, but just to let me feel it. And when I touched him, it was like touching eternity. And then he said something that sent chills through whatever I had left of a body. You must see what others have forgotten, and you must tell them. When Jesus said, you must see what others have forgotten, and you must tell them, I felt something shift around us. The light began to move, not fade, just shift, like the air itself was being stirred by something sacred. And then, I was no longer standing in that peaceful realm. I was watching, almost like being inside a movie, but I could feel everything too. He showed me the first vision. I was back on Earth, but everything looked darker, not just in lighting, but in spirit. I saw churches. Some of them were full, with people singing and clapping, but Jesus showed me their hearts, and I saw that many of them weren't really there for him. They were distracted, some thinking about money, others judging each other, some scrolling on their phones while pretending to worship. Then I saw a church that was completely empty, dusty, abandoned. And Jesus whispered, they lost me in the noise, and then they stopped looking altogether. I felt a heaviness in my spirit, like a deep sadness, not from anger, but from love that had been forgotten. The second vision hit me harder. I saw young people, kids like me, teenagers, students, some even younger. They were walking down wide roads, laughing, partying, looking for something to fill them. But as I followed the road with my eyes, it turned into fire. Not the kind that burns skin, but the kind that burns souls. And they didn't even see it. They were walking straight into it with smiles on their faces. I shouted, stop! "Don't go that way." But they couldn't hear me. Jesus said, "They are hungry for truth, but no one is feeding them, so they eat lies instead." I started to cry. I saw myself among them. Not long ago, I was one of them. Then came the third vision, and this one I still think about every night. I saw the earth, the whole world, and over it was this growing shadow. It looked like smoke, but alive. It was creeping into homes, into minds, into hearts, and behind it I saw faces, angry, twisted, lost. And then I saw people crying out for help, begging God to intervene, but so many of them had ignored him for so long they didn't even remember how to call his name. Jesus turned to me and said, "There is still time, but not much. Tell them to return to me. Tell them to listen." The visions ended, and we were back in the light again. My soul felt shaken, not from fear, but from urgency. I looked at him and asked, "Why me? I'm just a teenager. No one will believe me." And he said with that same powerful calmness, "You don't need to be believed. You need to be faithful. The truth will speak for itself." I stood in front of him, overwhelmed. My soul felt like it had just walked through a storm and come out clean but shaken. I didn't know what to say. I had seen things that broke me, things that terrified me, and yet standing here in his presence, I wasn't afraid. Jesus looked at me with so much compassion in his eyes. It wasn't the kind of pity you get from someone who thinks they're better than you. It was the look of someone who hurts when you hurt, like he had been feeling all the pain of the world, and still chose to love us anyway. He spoke again, not loud, not harsh, just that same quiet strength. "Tell them that I am real. Tell them I have never left. Not when they doubted, not when they ran, not even when they cursed my name." He paused and then added, "I weep for them, not because they sin, but because they forget who they are." That sentence hit me like a wave. We don't just turn away from God, we forget that we were made to be with Him. And when we forget that, we chase things that can never satisfy. I asked him, "What should I say? What if I don't know the right words?" He smiled. I don't even know how to explain what that smile did to me. It felt like every broken piece of me was being held together just by that look. "Speak from your heart," he said. "That is where I place my voice." He reached out again and I felt his hand, not on my skin but on my spirit, like he was imprinting something eternal inside of me. And then he began to give me a message, not just for me, but for anyone who would listen. These were his words. I remember them perfectly. "Time is short, not to scare, but to awaken. Tell them that love is the only thing that survives this life. Not fame, not fear, not failure. Love is the weight of eternity. Tell them that I am coming, not with wrath but with fire, a fire that burns away the lies, the masks, the noise. Only what is real will remain. Tell them to pray, not out of habit, but out of hunger, to speak to me like a friend, not a stranger. I am closer than they think, closer than their breath." I was crying. I didn't even notice it at first. It was like my soul had tears. And then he said one final thing before everything began to fade. "Daniel, your life is not over, but your purpose has begun." The light around him grew brighter, and suddenly I felt like I was being pulled backward, back into time, back into my body, back into pain. But as I slipped away from that perfect place, his voice echoed one last time. "Do not be afraid. I am with you, always." The next thing I remember was pain. A sharp, burning pain in my chest. Then the sound of machines beeping, voices shouting. My eyes opened, but everything was blurry. I couldn't move. I heard someone scream, "He's back! He's breathing!" I was in a hospital. Later, I found out I had flatlined for almost 3 minutes in the ambulance. No heartbeat, no oxygen. They told my parents there was little chance I'd wake up. But somehow, I did. The doctors couldn't explain it. One of them even said it was beyond medical logic. but I knew exactly what had happened. I had died, and I had met Jesus. When my mom came into the room, she just dropped to her knees and started sobbing. My dad couldn't even speak. My little sister kept holding my hand and asking if I was still hurt. And all I could say through all the pain and confusion was this: I saw him. He's real. At first, I didn't know how to tell anyone what I'd seen. How do you explain something like that? But over the next few days, as I healed, it became impossible to not speak. The visions, his voice, the message, it was all still burning inside me like a fire I couldn't put out. So I started to talk to my family, then to my church, then to people online, and now to you. I'm not the same person I was before that Sunday. I don't care about popularity or video games or looking cool anymore. I care about souls. I care about truth. I wake up every day with one question in my heart: am I living for eternity or just for now? I read the Bible now, not because I have to, but because it feels like hearing his voice again. I pray, not with fancy words, but like I'm talking to a friend. I feel him close, always, even when I mess up, even when I doubt. And if you're watching this, I believe he wants you to know the same thing. This isn't just my story, it's your warning and your invitation. Jesus is real, eternity is real, and time is short. But don't be afraid. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all together. You just need to open your heart. He's already reaching for you, just like he reached for me. So please, stop running. Stop pretending it doesn't matter. Start praying. Start listening. Start living like your soul is eternal. Because it is. I shouldn't be here, but I am. And I know now it's not just to survive, it's to testify. He gave me this life back for a reason. And maybe it was for you.